microphone on? Hey, what's up, Turning Point? What's up, Turning Point? Or should I say, what's good? What's good, Turning Point? Hey, so it's hard to follow a speech like that. That's not really my flow and style. You know, I'm a policy guy. You know, I kind of build relationships. Oh, God bless America. So, you know, I'm just going to give it to you straight. You know, I was told to kind of talk about my career and how I ended up working for one of the greatest presidents ever, President Donald Trump. And so I'll talk a little bit about that, you know, and, you know, Donald Trump ran on a platform that said he was going to speak for all communities, especially the forgotten communities. And so I come from one of the forgotten communities. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. There we go, Cleveland. What side you from? East side, all right? Yeah, east side, you know, so. But yeah, grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, Lee and Harvard for folks from Cleveland, and grew up with a lot of trauma and had to fight a lot due to that trauma. I found myself fighting really all the time with people in the neighborhood. I will say I never lost a fight. So I was pretty good at that. But I realized that I didn't really like to fight because I fight somebody and then they'll start crying and I'll be like, oh my God, I feel bad. The great story in the neighborhood, it was like a bully who was picking on all my friends. And I was blessed, you know, we had to literally fight against the system and rig the system for me to go to a Catholic school. You know, I was raised by a single parent dad, and my dad sent me to a Catholic school, and he couldn't afford it. And so I had the Catholic school in my mother's name because she was on government assistance. And so that's how we rigged the system for me to go to Catholic school, and that's where I got education. But I grew up in the inner city school. So it's funny, I didn't even know all this stuff was like school choice battle, and I'm like living this stuff out. But, you know, bully picking on all my friends, and they told me about the bully, and I'm like, I don't know about this bully, you know. And then the guy came, and you know, I went and talked to my older brother, who was really like my friend, and I'm like, man, older brother, you know, this bully, he beating up everybody in the neighborhood, thinking he was gonna say like, oh, I'm about to go kick his ass, and I'm like, all right, cool. But instead, he was like, where he at, Jerron? I'm like, man, he right up the street right now. He was like, you about to go beat him up. I'm just like, what? All right. So, of course, I'm going up the street, nervous, and, you know, he said, you know, my homeboy got to holler at you. And literally, I got in a fight with the guy, and it's like the whole community came out. It's like something out of a movie. And they put a circle around us, you know what I'm saying? A guy like was 3 feet taller than me, and you know what I'm saying? And it was fight or flight at that point because I was scared. And so, but I hit the guy, and this big guy, like, started crying like I'd never seen anything like this before. So that was pretty much the fight. I know y'all was thinking about something crazy, but but after that, you know, I bought him ice cream because the ice cream truck came, and I felt so bad that he was crying, so I bought him ice cream, and so that became the story, that Jerron fought the bully and then bought him ice cream, and they became friends. So that's kind of really like my life, right? Pretty much, you know, I grew up watching Hulk Hogan. First of all, before I go into Hulk Hogan and stuff, who all in here are considered millennials? Raise your hands. Scream, millennials. Hey. All right, good question. Okay. Why? Generation Y. Y generation, raise your hand. Okay. That's supposed to be after millennials. Okay. It's Gen Z? Oh, my bad. Gen Z. All right. That's right, millennials and Y. Yeah, there you got it. Z, okay, so we got a pretty big crowd. So y'all know who Hulk Hogan is then. All right, so I'm being an 80s baby, you know, I've been around a lot of different Generation Z people, and I started talking about 80s and 90s stuff, and people are like, what the hell are you talking about, dude? I'm just like, you never heard of Al Bundy? Like, anyway, so Hulk Hogan, you know, I loved Hulk Hogan because he was like a fighter, and I loved his theme song. You know what I'm saying? I am a real American. Fight for what's right for every man. Anyway, that was me, you know, and so I'd be fighting a battle, and then all of a sudden I started going and getting like energized and empowered, you know what I'm saying? And that's what I felt like in my community because, you know, I got persecuted a lot for going to a Catholic school. This is why I fought all the time, because people said I spoke really good English and I sound like a white boy, right? How many times you get that stuff? You sound like a white boy, right? And so I felt like I had to defend myself and win some street cred. But then I also realized that, it's a way of fighting without fighting, like Bruce Lee, and so always got in trouble in school. Up until my 9th grade year, I got into a car accident. My 10th grade year, I got into a car accident, and I broke my leg playing football, all in the same year. And I was an amazing football player. And that made me realize I needed to kind of get an education and focus. And it was around that time that I discovered conservatism, individualism. I had studied the Transcendentalists when I was in high school. And the Transcendentalists believed in like individual freedom and individuality and reliance on self. But no one ever told me that was conservative values, So growing up, I moved to DC because I was just like, since I'm not on the football field, I want to be empowered to kind of fight for my community. And Pastor Mark Barnes said it right. You guys are all fighters out there for your community. And I wanted to do the same thing when I left Cleveland, Ohio, because coming from the forgotten communities, I felt like it was no one out there actually fighting for us. I used to ask my dad all the time, I was like, Dad, how come we don't have like a Martin Luther King or anything like that? Because, I wasn't believing in Al Sharpton or Jesse Jackson. There just was no connectivity there. And so he said, like, look, all the leaders left, and so you just need to go out there and get the bag, make money, and take care of yourself and worry about yourself. But I had deep empathy for my community because I seen so many of the people I grew up with end up in the system, either going to jail or struggling with drugs or struggling with alcohol, just all different types of problems. And I seen it come over all over my life, even in my family. And so when I came to Washington, I didn't really know what was going to happen in Washington. I never even visited Howard University. But I'm like, I want to go to a black school, and I want to just learn about myself and my people, right? So I go to Howard University, and it was an election year. It was Bush versus Gore. And, of course, I voted for Al Gore because I thought I was a Democrat at the time. And Al Gore, of course, came to Howard University, and he preached like a whole sermon in front of our audience. And I was like, that's Al Gore, preaching? And it was kind of funny to me. I was just like, that didn't even sound right. And then somebody joked, was like, only thing he didn't do was serve some chicken after that sermon. And I was like, oh, damn. But I still voted for the guy, even though I felt like he was kind of playing me a little bit by coming to the community and talking that way. And so, anyway, he ended up losing his own state. And that just like blew the tops off my head at 19. I was just like, how does this guy lose his own state? Like, you spend the whole time representing the state as a senator, and then you run for president, and you would think everybody in that state would vote for their person that's like closest to the office. But he lost that joint. And I'm like, geez. So I was like, man, let me kind of learn things for myself. Because at the end of the day, I wanted to be able to fight for our people. And so I got an internship with Congressman J.C. Watts' office, and I spent the whole summer studying the Census Bureau's census tracts on poverty and, how the nation flipped Republican or Democrat. And what I had learned was, regardless if it was a Republican or a Democrat in office, people weren't doing shit for my community. So at the end of the day, I felt like we needed more Republicans who were courageous enough to take on the challenge of dealing with the communities that I cared about. And so I went back to Howard, started a college Republican chapter, and then that's when the fight started. And it felt just like when I was a kid fighting against a bully. I'll have everybody going against me and debating me, but I'll throw that one punch and they'd be like, that's a good point. You know what I'm saying? Then next thing you know, we got a list of 5, and then we got a quiet list of 50. You know what I'm saying? It's like 5 people who are like outwardly Republican, and like 50, like, I'll support you, man. You just let me know. I'll come to the event. So that's what that was, But what I wanted was a movement. And this is a movement right here, man. God bless America. I mean, it really is, because we're all fighting up against giants every single day. Look, we're good as a group, but I know when we leave this joint, y'all gonna go y'all separate ways, and you may be on that island. You know what I'm saying? Fighting against a giant, defending the president, and I want to give you some ammo to deal with that fight, because at the end of the day, people can't fight against policy, especially if it's moving the needles in communities that have been forgotten for decades. All right? So the big reform effort that I ended up getting involved in was poverty alleviation. Conservatives, we usually just talk about welfare, which is an important part, but opportunity is way bigger. You know what I mean? And that's why I love the president, right? When you say keep America great, when I think about America being great, I think about America being a land of opportunity, right? 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 So if you're making America great again, you're making America the land of opportunity again, right? So opportunity then, opportunity now. And we're not going to wait around for it. We're going to get the opportunity by fighting for what's right, and so all these themes tie together, and I want you to know that it's not just about criminal justice reform, it's not just about HBCU reform, it's not just about opportunity zones. It's about taking that infrastructure and changing people's lives, right? That's what it's doing. It's empowering you to go out there, empowered as an individual and being able to empower communities. And I want to continue to work with you all to help do that, because at the end of the day, when you're feeling like you're by yourself on that island, you have somebody, you have a whole infrastructure behind you to help fight against that giant. So believe in that. And so the first policy that, it was weird. I'll tell you a little bit of how I ended up in the White House, and then I'll take questions. I know you all are kind of looking for the rah-rah, Cisco-Bah crowd, but, I want to talk to you guys and kind of create that connectivity, because if you get anything out of me, you're going to be armed for battle, because I'm all about creating some warriors. Actually, my first football team that I played on was called the Cleveland Warriors, and my football coach used to always say, before we went out into battle, you got to kind of be relaxed and poised, and you have that confidence in you that whoever was coming for you, you was going to come for them first. And so he'll go, Warriors, how you feel? We'll go, all right. Warriors, how you feel? All right. Like a pit bull, just say it fast. You know what I'm saying? And then we used to descend on the football field. And by the way, we always went undefeated and always lost the championship. It's a really good team, but at the end of the day, we went a long way. And so I want to give you those tidbits. When I got recruited to the White House to do the opportunity agenda, they hired me as director of urban affairs and revitalization policy. And I wrote 6 executive orders, including the executive order that created the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council. The HBCU executive order, all right? The crime prevention and reentry executive order. Faith and opportunity executive order. The youth sports executive order, which people don't talk much about, but that's a really good one. And, those infrastructures is what we're using really to kind of catalyze empowerment around the country. But the second thing I was able to do, because after spending a year and a half working those executive orders, then I was moved to the Legislative Affairs Office and I negotiated policy. The one policy reform I negotiated was the Investment and Opportunity Act into the tax code, so that's what created opportunity zones. And so that was major. The other thing that I negotiated was the whole criminal justice reform bill, and that's what you were talking about on stage. So since then, we've freed over 5,000 people in prison. Almost 80% of those people are African American. We've got rid of the 3-strike rule, so no more 3 strikes. And we did things like change our whole prison system so that it actually does things like change a person's heart when they come back out so they won't commit crime again. And that's why it's about safe communities. And so if you take that, you take opportunity zones, and you take the stuff that we did on HBCUs, you have great infrastructure, and I'll tell you how this infrastructure kind of weaves together a little bit. And it's really in the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council. So have any of y'all heard of Scott Turner? Yeah. All right, cool. So Scott Turner, I got to bring him back to here because y'all would love Scott Turner. That guy really gets the crowd going. But Scott Turner is the executive director of the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council. And basically we have 4 buckets of funding: economic development funding, safe community funding, workforce development funding, and then funding for entrepreneurship to be focused in opportunity zones. And so not only are we going to states and having convenings around opportunity zones, which is bringing private capital to the table, but we're taking all of our federal capital and streamlining it and putting that all at work at the same time so that we can create opportunity now. But we can't do that in a vacuum because all politics are local and things are different in every neighborhood. And so some neighborhoods, it may be creating safe communities. Other neighborhoods, it may be education. Other neighborhoods, they might want to create more small businesses. And so what we did with our federal funding was encourage cities and states to do something similar, to show their commitment and then design a strategy for revitalization, right? And so why does that work in concert with HBCUs? Well, there's 50 HBCUs and opportunity zones, right? So it's a way for us to bring the private sector to the table to help revitalize these HBCUs. How does that interact with criminal justice reform? Well, a person coming home from prison needs to basically get jobs and opportunity to not return to prison. And some of them don't even want to work jobs. They want to be an entrepreneur. That's many of them. If you grew up in my neighborhood, everybody want to hustle and be a business owner. So that infrastructure goes well with opportunity zones as well. And so we've been looking at that all kind of holistically to empower communities. And so when you're going out and you're talking to people and knocking on doors and people are asking you about President Trump and what he's done for our communities, he's led to help us set up all those infrastructures. Like literally in my time advising him, I spent a lot of time talking about the community I grew up in, and he says all the time that look, I'm not doing this for politics. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do, And we haven't had that in Washington in a long time, all right? And I'll tease that back a little bit because I didn't talk about how I got into working in politics. I met a lobbyist about, 20 years ago who was a friend of my football coach, and he got me a job on the Hill, and that's how I ended up working with J.C. Watt's office. But after going to J.C. Watt's office and then coming to Howard and starting a college Republican chapter, I got called to work for the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House back then was Dennis Hassard, and I worked for him my whole senior year of college, and then after college, I worked in his office, so I got to work on the 9/11 Commission and a couple cool things. Some cool things I didn't really like the Patriot Act. That was terrible because I left the White House. I left the Capitol then, and then spent 3 years as a broker back home in Cleveland, and that's really when it hit me that I need infrastructure change to really empower my communities, because I came back to the same community I came from and it was worse. You know what I mean? Worse. And this is the Obama years, when people were just starving for opportunity and they weren't getting it. And so I resigned from that job and moved back to Washington. And when I moved back to Washington, we're in the minority, and I had some relationships. I was selling insurance because still had my brokerage license, and I didn't want to ask anybody for help getting on the Hill. So I sold insurance to a whole bunch of Hill staffers, and one of them was like, "Jerron, you ever think about coming back to the Hill?" And I was like, yeah, I want to come back. I think it'd be pretty cool. And so he asked me what I wanted to do. I was like, well, I left as a staff assistant. Just hire me. I'd do anything. So I worked the front desk and became a staff assistant, and that was for Adam Putnam. And then 2 months later, Adam Putnam resigned, and then a new conference chair came in, and his name was Mike Pence. And you know him as Vice President Mike Pence. And probably up until then, I probably still didn't consider myself a conservative. I considered myself like a moderate Republican. just because I believed in the economics. I didn't really believe in the conservative, like, cultural values. But I developed a lot of that under Pence's shop. And the reason why I bring that up is because this was during the Obama administration, and we were always fighting, and, if you remember when Obama ran, he had a lot of people fooled, because when he first ran that first year, he had even Republicans are like, did you see that 2004 speech? Oh my God. And I was like, yeah, he sounded like a Republican, right? And then he came in and governed and really just like kind of governed way to the left, without any type of compromise or working with people. Yeah, exactly. And so my whole thing is that what I learned working on the Hill is that we lacked political courage to kind of fight against the hard issues. Like, so many doggone politicians came into town with these promises and then never did the things that they promised to do. So working for President Trump was easy because he's, for the first time, someone I believe that was going to shake things up, because we didn't need another politician, selling us promises. We needed someone that was going to deliver outcomes. And so when he hired me to be the director of urban affairs and revitalization policy, I happily did it. And from that, he delivered on his promises. He said he was going to speak for all forgotten communities, and we did just that. And so the thing is what's next? You know what I'm saying? And the reason I'm working for him is because he asked us one question: what do you have to lose? Right? What do you have to lose? Well, now he can say, this is what you have to gain from my administration: empowerment, opportunity for all, opportunity now. But I need your help to do that, because we got to be smart. We be smart fighters, know how to block and tackle. And I want to help you all be able to block and tackle. And so with that said, I love to take some questions from you all and have a bit of a dialogue, because I'm kind of better at that than like rah-rah. So go ahead, right here.
Oh, there's a mic. Cool. Hi, my name is Spencer Sims, the Vice President of the South Los Angeles Inglewood Republican Assembly.
Yeah.
And so we had a mixer actually about opportunity zones to get people out in the community to come out and we talk about it, things like that. And a question that some people had for me was, well, what kind of stops or prevents or people who are not African American, who don't look like us in our community, from coming into an opportunity zone, setting up a shop or a business or something there, and people in that community are giving their capital and resources to this entity or people, but the people actually running it are not African American or black. And so what would be your response to a question like that for somebody, let's say like Nation of Islam people, or people really really engaged in like Black Power type of thing, to sell them on opportunity zones?
Right. Well, Nation of Islam, that's a hell of an example. Went all the way in.
Yeah.
Well, one, that shit's happening anyway. People are revitalizing some of these low-income communities. Opportunity zones is giving infrastructure and capital for people to be able to own their own community. And so at the end of the day, it comes back to the individual in the community to use the resources to revitalize their own communities. And so opportunity zones is a tool, but it's all about local positioning. And so to that same community, if they care about creating more black businesses and resources, this tool can be leveraged for it. But it has to make economic sense. The funny thing is, when you go out on the road, when I'm out on the road, people are just looking for like a government program, and they think it's going to happen, but that's not sustainable, right? When something is viable and it makes money and it like feeds itself, it's sustainable, you know what I'm saying? And it grows and it's profitable. And so opportunity zones only works if it makes profit and it makes sense, right? And what we're trying to do is build around opportunity zones ladders, so that people can be empowered and leverage the tool for their community. Yeah.
To your left over here.
Right here. Yeah. Right here, the woman right here.
You got over here on your left.
Next. Yeah.
You're on over here on your left.
Oh, shoot. I didn't even know you was passing around the mics. What's good?
How you doing, sir? My name is Jonathan Harmon. Political science major, Clark Atlanta University Master's Program, and also a graduate of Bethune-Cookman University, political science bachelor's. So my question is to you, from kids I've talked to over at Clark Atlanta and in different parts of the country, you have kids that's in Compton and Brooklyn and Atlanta that actually has been kicked out of their communities due to gentrification, things like that. On my behalf, I understand that gentrification, in my opinion, isn't a real thing. It's more economic land development, which is a cycle, because 50 to 70 years ago, Compton was white, Brooklyn was white, some of Atlanta was white. Chick-fil-A actually started at Greenbrier Mall, which is a black mall currently. So why are we focusing on land development inside the community of the black community versus focusing on where they're being moved to, which is Henry County, developing businesses where black people are being moved to due to what's going on with the government right now?
Sure. I don't know if I understand your question, but I think I hear what you were going. Well, first of all, this whole gentrification thing is the result of bad policies. You know, two things. You have people who don't own their community, right? So if you don't own your community, it's easy to kind of get pushed out. But on top of that, you got bad policies which penalize you for owning in your community. Like if you're increasing prices on a place that I've lived in, let's say I lived in a place and the property value goes up and I own the house, but then my prices on my taxes have increased, then I may not be able to afford those taxes if I'm on a fixed income. And so many of those places have really bad policies and they need to deregulate. And opportunity zones is actually putting a mirror in their face because it's showing the community that, like, damn, the reason we're not revitalizing is because our policies, our zoning policy is bad, our tax system is bad, you know, the government never comes through on its promises, and won't have any economic empowerment tools, you know, and so opportunity zones is helping us deal with that and fight back against those type of systems. Microphone, I ain't okay. This lady back here asked a question.
Okay, so first of all, I'm in one of those zones, opportunity zones in Cleveland, Ohio, and it's successful.
What part of Cleveland?
I live on 89th and Quincy.
Oh, okay, that's where my father's from.
There you go.
My father's from Quincy, the Huff area.
I retired and moved back to Quincy. I bought the house a long time ago. But anyway, we're not going to get this. I'm going to tell you this. Yes, it's working. Yeah. I'm an entrepreneur, and I was introduced to EDCI, Women's Business Center, Jumpstart, Growth Up, Kia. I can't pronounce it, but I'm not sure it is. They're giving money for people who want to start businesses. Right. You should see all the people that's getting businesses in these little hubs and everything all over the place. In Cleveland, on 105th, and certain neighborhoods. They are really working this system here. They doing it, at least in Cleveland. I don't know about anybody else.
I know that's happening all around the country.
You know, but my question is this, because my mother always said, in order to do something, you got to have the tools to work with. Yeah. So if it was you, and you went back, and you know the mentality of our people, and at the age, because I'm 63, so, you know, we've been traveling. You know, we done evolved. I already know it. So anyway, if you were to go back to your community, and we want to take the blacks who don't believe in there's always Democrats. If you were to have a sentence or a phrase or opening dialogue, what would you say to the people to get them to plant a seed and get them to thinking that, you know, I really don't think that they're doing this for me. I think I better check out Trump, or maybe I better think about things a little bit different. What would you say?
Well, one, I will say that people are kind of tired of talk. Seeing is believing, you know. So if you can build up infrastructure, you know, hire people and tell stories, you know, that's what get people intrigued. You know, telling stories about how people have been successful and been empowered. Like telling people things like that. As soon as you say that to somebody, people are going to be like, oh, where can I sign up? You know, and then you can say, oh yeah, this is from the Trump policy. Whole different game change. Because at the end of the day, people, we're past the talking age because we had a president already that said hope and change, and I'm still waiting on it, right? It didn't come until the Trump administration happened, right? That's when we got hope and change, and so talk about the hope and change that you have from this infrastructure and the new opportunities, and then say, oh yeah, this is from the Trump policy, America first.
All right, this is the last question over here.
All right.
Hi, this is my first time here, and
Mine's too. Not my
name is-
last though. I'll be back.
My name is Sierra. I go to Bowie State University. I'm a computer technology major, and I'm also an entrepreneur. I have 2 businesses. I have a cleaning company, and I host kids' entrepreneur pop-up shops. My question is about the opportunity zones. I wanted to know, how is it helping small businesses? Because if so, I need help. Where's the help? I need it.
Well, I'll say 2 things. Access to capital, access to capital, access to capital. If you want to expand your businesses without going through the red tape of regulations, if you know somebody that has a capital gain, you can start an opportunity fund. There's no minimum or maximums, and use that capital to grow your business. It just has to be profitable. So you have to sell it to that investor, and it has to make sense. You get on the same side of the balance sheet as the person that's investing. It's not a debt instrument. It's equity investment. And so that's one thing. And then also, I don't know what state you're in. What state? Where you from? DC? Okay, yeah. So I'm working with DC to try to get them to codify more laws in their opportunity zones to help empower entrepreneurs. Yeah. Well, we're going to bring opportunity to you. We're going to try to do some small business convenings. I got a colleague, Ashley Bell, that's coming from the Small Business Administration, is going to work in the White House and actually go on a tour and host these convenings at the Small Business Development Centers. That's in every city, and talk about how do you start a business and start access to capital. Because at the end of the day, people just want ladders. You know what I mean? And that's what we're setting up, ladders to opportunity, so that people can empower themselves. At the end of the day, that's what it's about. And you all are going to be out there fighting a good fight because you all are warriors just like I am. So I'm going to say this at the end. Warriors, how you feel? How you feel? How you feel? God bless America.